The room was quiet, too quiet. A silence heavy like a weight pressing against the walls. In the middle of that silence sat a mother, her skin pale silver under the dim light, her long dark eyes staring at the cradle before her. It was empty, she sang, her voice trembling like a fragile string. The lullaby was soft, almost broken, yet it filled the space with a strange sadness. She sang not because the cradle needed it, but because her heart demanded it. Every night she returned to the same corner. Every night she sang to the same cradle. Every night her hands trembled as if she could still feel the tiny weight of her baby resting there. But the cradle stayed empty. Only the sound of her voice remained. Her name was Lyra. She had once been known in her village for her bright laughter. Now she was known for the song of sorrow she carried on her lips. People passed by her home and whispered, "She still sings." Some shook their heads in pity, others in fear, but none dared to stop her. None dared to take the song away. The memory was sharp, as if carved into her mind with fire. The night the humans came, the sky had roared with machines, doors had been broken, cries had filled the air, and when the chaos ended, her daughter was gone. Her only child ripped from her arms, no one explained why. No one knew where the children had been taken. Some believed the humans wanted soldiers. Others believed they wanted experiments, but Lyra believed only one truth. They had stolen her heart, her blood, her life. Days passed, weeks passed. Still she sang, sometimes in anger, sometimes in hope, sometimes with a soft smile that cracked into tears. The lullaby became her prayer, her call across the stars, her voice reaching for a child she could not see. Neighbors told her to stop. They said the child would never return. They said the song was only a wound that would not heal, but she did not listen. She could not stop. She felt if she kept singing, somewhere, somehow, her daughter would hear her and maybe, just maybe, she would find her way back. The cradle itself was small, carved by Lyra's own hands from the wood of her world's trees, decorated with tiny marks of stars and rivers, symbols of her people. Now it was only a shell, but to her it was still sacred. She polished it every morning. She placed fresh cloth inside. She whispered promises to it, as if the cradle could carry them to her child. Sometimes, late at night, she imagined footsteps at the door. She imagined her daughter crying, reaching for her. She would rise quickly, heart pounding. But always the door was empty. Always the silence returned, and she would fall to her knees, the song trembling back to her lips. One evening, as the sky turned red with sunset, she walked outside. The streets were empty, the air heavy with smoke from the last raid. She saw other mothers, silent, eyes dark with grief, but none of them sang. Only she carried that burden. Only she dared to call out through music. It was then she realized something. The song was not only for her daughter, it was for all of them. It was the voice of mothers who had lost their children. It was the cry of a people left broken by war. And so she sang louder, not only to an empty cradle, but to the empty arms of her world, yet deep inside fear grew. What if her daughter had already forgotten her? What if her song would never reach her? What if the humans had already taken her beyond the stars, too far for hope to follow? The thought burned like ice, but still she sang, for singing was all she had. The village elder came once. He listened in silence, then placed a hand on her shoulder. "You sing to nothing," he whispered. "But sometimes nothing is what keeps us alive." And then he left, leaving her with his words, leaving her with the cradle. The stars outside her window seemed colder each night. The humans' machines moved across the skies, lights that never belonged there, reminders of what had been stolen. Yet in the stillness of her room, her voice rose, weak yet unbroken. The cradle rocked gently as if moved by an unseen hand. Her song wrapped around it, and though no child lay within, the mother's eyes shone with a stubborn fire. She would not stop. She would not break. For in her heart, she believed, somewhere out there, her daughter still breathed. Somewhere out there, her daughter still waited. And until the stars themselves went silent, she would keep singing to the empty cradle. And on that night, unknown to her, far beyond the hills, footsteps were already moving closer. Footsteps that would change everything. Footsteps carrying a secret, but she did not know. She only sang, she only wept. She only clung to the cradle and whispered, "Come back to me." The night carried her voice into the dark, and the cradle remained empty. The village was no longer alive. Once children had played in the streets, their laughter rising like music. Now the air was filled with silence, heavy and sharp. It was a silence that pressed against every home, a silence that carried sorrow like a storm that never ended. Lyra walked through the streets, her eyes scanning the empty houses, the broken doors, the shadows that moved without sound. Other mothers avoided her gaze, their faces pale and hollow, their voices gone. They no longer sang. They no longer called for their children. They lived in a silence that felt colder than death. She was different. She still sang, though her voice trembled. Though her heart ached, though her throat burned, she sang because silence was worse. Silence was the sound of defeat. Silence was the sound of forgetting. And she would not forget. She would never forget. The others whispered about her. Some called her brave. Some called her foolish. One woman muttered, "Her singing will bring the soldiers back." Another replied, "Let her sing, at least one voice still fights," but none joined her. None dared to raise their own voice against the cold. At night the silence grew heavier. It pressed into the walls of her home. It filled the cradle like a shadow, and yet she answered with song. She sang louder, as if her voice could break the weight around her, as if her voice could reach beyond the stars. She remembered her daughter's laughter, soft like bells, bright like light. She remembered the way tiny hands had reached for her hair, pulling, grasping, full of life. Those sounds had once filled her home, but now only her voice filled it, her song echoing through empty rooms. The village elder spoke to the people one evening, his voice deep and tired. "We have lost much," he said. "Our children are gone, our hope is thin, but we must survive." Many nodded, many lowered their heads, but Lyra's heart burned with anger. Survive was not enough. Living without her daughter was not living. It was only waiting. She looked at the sky. Human ships moved there, silver shadows that glowed with strange light. They came and went, taking what they wanted, leaving only silence behind. Her people watched the sky with fear, but she watched with fire in her eyes. One day she would sing her song into that sky, and one day her daughter would hear it. The silence was not only outside, it was inside too. It grew in the hearts of her people. It made them heavy. It made them numb. Parents no longer spoke of their children. They hid their pain behind walls, but Lyra refused to hide. She poured her pain into every note of her song. Her voice became the only sound of defiance in a world gone quiet. Sometimes she felt the silence push back. It whispered to her in the night. It told her to stop. It told her she was weak. It told her her daughter was gone forever. But she answered with music, soft at first, then louder, then rising until the walls shook. Her song was her weapon, her shield, her cry against the cold. The children's rooms in the village stood untouched, toys left where little hands had dropped them, tiny shoes still waiting by doors, soft blankets folded on empty beds. Every home was a silent grave, but none dared to touch those things. None dared to break the silence except Lyra. She would stand at her window and sing, her song drifting down the dark streets. Sometimes she saw shadows pause. Sometimes she saw eyes shining with tears in the dark. But no one came to her. No one joined her. They were prisoners of silence. But she was not. Her people had a saying, "Silence eats the soul." She now understood it. She could feel the silence trying to eat hers, trying to consume her hope, but she fought back. Not with blades, not with fire, but with a simple song to an empty cradle. The elder came to her once more, his voice shaking. "Lyra, your singing stirs the others. You keep memory alive, but it is dangerous. The soldiers hear everything if they return. More will suffer." She looked at him, her voice steady. "Then let them hear. Let them know we have not forgotten." The elder sighed and walked away, but he did not stop her. No one could. Her song was stronger than fear. Her song was stronger than silence. Still, deep in her chest, doubt grew. What if she was wrong? What if singing was only pain without hope? What if her daughter could no longer hear? The thought pressed hard, and for a moment she nearly broke. Her voice cracked, her eyes blurred, but then she touched the cradle. She felt the wood carved with love, and her song returned, fragile but unbroken. One night, as the moonlight touched the empty streets, she heard something strange. A faint echo that did not belong. She froze, her song cut short, her heart pounding. For a moment she thought she had imagined it, but then it came again. A sound faint, almost hidden beneath the silence. It was not the cry of a child, not the call of a friend. It was something else, something new. She pressed her hand against the cradle, her breath sharp. The silence had broken for the first time, and though she did not yet understand what it meant, she felt her heart beat faster. The cold silence was no longer complete. Something had stirred within it. Something was moving closer, and she knew. Her story was only beginning. The night was heavy, the air thick with shadows. The village slept in silence, but Lyra did not sleep. She sat by the cradle as always, her voice carrying the same old lullaby, soft and broken. Her song drifted out the window, into the empty streets, into the cold air. And for a moment she thought she heard something answer, but the sound was faint, too faint to be real. Still her heart held on to it. Hours passed, the stars turned above, and then it happened, a glow touched the edge of her door, faint at first, then brighter. A pale blue light that should not have been there. Lyra froze, her song cut short. Her eyes wide, her breath caught in her throat. She had seen lights like this before. The humans carried them. Their machines carried them. Their weapons carried them. Her body trembled, fear rushing through her. She remembered the night they had taken her daughter. The same blue glow had filled the sky. The same footsteps had shaken the ground. She pressed her hand against the cradle, whispering, "Not again." The light grew. Shadows bent across the walls. Footsteps followed, slow and heavy, moving closer and closer. Her mind raced. Should she hide? Should she fight? She had nothing, no blade, no shield, only her voice. And what good was a song against men of iron? Still she rose, her hands shaking, her body tense. She stood between the door and the cradle, her heart beating so hard it felt like it would break her chest. She would not let them touch the cradle again, even if it was empty, even if her child was gone. They would not take it. The glow reached the cracks in her door. It spilled into her home, blue and cold. Wrapping around her like ice, she gritted her teeth, her voice whispering the song again, soft, broken, but steady. She sang to give herself courage. Then a sound, not a machine, not metal, but a voice, soft, almost human. Calling in the dark, she could not hear the words, but it was there, real. Her breath stopped, the door creaked. A shadow stretched across the floor and her fear grew sharper. She thought of running, but her legs refused. She thought of screaming, but her throat was dry. All she could do was stand and wait. Her song trembling in the air. The door opened slowly, painfully slow, and the light poured in. Brighter now, filling the room. The cradle glowed faintly beneath it, the carved stars and rivers shining like they were alive. Lyra gasped, her eyes locked on the figure at the door. Tall, broad, carrying the light in one hand, something else in the other. Her fear screamed at her. It was a soldier, a thief. Another shadow come to take. She stepped back, ready to strike with her bare hands if she had to. But then the light shifted and she saw. The other hand was not empty. It held something small, wrapped, moving. Her heart nearly stopped. Her voice broke into silence. Her eyes burned with tears. A hand, small and delicate, reached out from the wrapping, fingers curled, trembling in the glow. It was a child's hand, her child's hand. Lyra staggered, disbelief crashing over her. Her knees weak, her breath sharp. She could not move, she could not speak. She could only stare. The figure stepped inside, slow, careful. Not a soldier's march, but something different, something human. The blue glow fell on his face and she saw it was not the same as the others. His eyes were not cold, his steps not cruel, his voice not harsh. He looked at her as if carrying a heavy secret. Lyra's voice trembled, almost breaking. "My daughter," she whispered. The words thin, fragile, but filled with fire. The child shifted in his arms, a soft sound escaping her lips. A sound Lyra had dreamed of for weeks, a sound she thought she would never hear again. Her song returned, but not from choice. It burst out of her, broken and shaking, half sob, half melody. The cradle shook as if answering. The man stood still, letting her see, letting her believe. His lips moved, words spilling. I could not let them harm her. The room spun. Her body trembled, her mind screamed with questions. Who was he? Why had he come? What did it mean? But her eyes never left the small hand, the fragile fingers, the little life she thought lost forever. The strange light still filled the room, but now it no longer seemed cold, it no longer seemed cruel. It was the light of something new, something dangerous, something impossible. The silence of the village was broken, replaced by the sound of her voice, the sound of her child's breath, the sound of fate changing. Lyra's tears fell, her song cracked, but her heart roared. The cradle was no longer empty, and though fear still whispered in her chest, though the danger was not gone, though the shadows of soldiers still hung in the sky, in that moment she felt alive again. The strange light had brought her sorrow back to life, and her story was about to take a path she had never dreamed. The figure stood in the doorway, the blue light glowing from his hand, his face half hidden in shadow. Lyra's breath caught in her throat, her eyes fixed not on him, but on the tiny bundle he carried close to his chest. Her daughter, her baby, the little hand that reached out, fingers curling in the air, so small, so alive. Her heart beat so fast she thought it might break. Her knees trembled, her lips shook. She wanted to scream, she wanted to run forward, but her fear held her in place. What if this was a trick? What if it was not real? The man stepped further into the room, his steps careful, not like a soldier. Not like the others who had stormed into homes with fire and steel. This one moved as if he was afraid of breaking something fragile. The cradle between them glowed under the strange light, the carved stars catching the shimmer. Lyra felt her breath choke. Her lullaby cut off mid-note. Silence wrapped the room, but it was not the heavy silence of grief. It was the silence of waiting, of holding, of disbelief. Her eyes locked on his face. Human, yes, but not like the others. His eyes were not sharp with cruelty. They carried something different, something she had not seen in humans before. Still, anger burned inside her. This was a thief. This was the kind who had stolen her child. She stepped closer, her hands curling into fists, her voice rising in a whisper that shook with rage. "Give her back." The man froze, his grip on the child gentle. Protective, his eyes wide, his mouth opening. "I am not here to harm." His voice was quiet. Trembling like hers, her heart twisted, her mind screamed. How could she trust him? How could she believe anything he said? The night of the raid echoed in her memory. The screams, the machines, the fire. Humans had brought nothing but sorrow. And yet here he was, holding her daughter. Not with iron, not with chains, but with care. With a strange tenderness that made her hesitate. The child stirred, a small cry breaking from her lips. And Lyra's body broke with it. Her arms reached out without thinking, her voice cracking. "She is mine." The man stepped forward slowly, as if every step was a battle. He lowered the bundle, his eyes never leaving hers. "Yes," he said softly, "she is yours." Her hands shook as she took the child, her breath sharp, her body trembling, the weight in her arms almost too much to bear. She pressed her face against the soft skin, the tiny warmth, her tears spilling into the cloth. Her lullaby burst out again, not as sorrow but as raw, desperate joy. The cradle shook as her song wrapped around it, filling the air. For a moment the world was only her and her daughter. Nothing else existed, no soldiers, no silence, no fear. Only the rhythm of her child's breath, only the sound of her song. But then she looked up, her eyes sharp, her voice cold. "Why?" she asked. "Why bring her back?" "Why you?" The man swallowed, his jaw tight, his eyes full of shadows. "Because I could not let them take her," he said. "I could not watch what they do to them." Her chest tightened, her grip on the child strong. His words opened more questions than answers. "What do they do?" she demanded, her voice like fire. He lowered his eyes, the blue light flickering in his hand. "You do not want to know," he whispered. "But she is safe now. Safe with you." Her rage flared. "Safe," she spat. "While soldiers walk our skies, while children vanish. Safe means nothing," the man lifted his head, his gaze steady. "I risked my life to bring her here," he said. "If they find me, if they know, I am finished." Her song slowed, trembling, confusion pulling at her heart. He was human, yet he had saved her daughter. Why? The cradle rocked gently beside them. Her child stirred, a soft sigh escaping her lips, and for a moment the storm between them softened. Lyra studied his face, the lines of exhaustion, the shadows of fear. He was no soldier, not like the ones who had come before. His hands were rough but not cruel. They were the hands of someone who had chosen something dangerous. Still, trust did not come easy. Not after the fire, not after the silence. She held her child close, her eyes narrowing. "If you lie to me, I will kill you." Her voice steady, sharp as glass. The man nodded. No fear in his eyes, only a strange sorrow. "Then let me prove it," he said. The cradle's carvings gleamed under the light. The song in her throat softened into silence. The world seemed to hold its breath. For the first time since the raid, Lyra's arms were no longer empty, but the danger was not gone. The night still carried whispers of soldiers, the air still heavy with war. She looked at the human, her heart torn between hate and gratitude, between rage and hope. The room was filled not only with light, but with questions that burned hotter than fire, and somewhere deep inside her, a voice whispered, "This was only the beginning." The child slept softly in Lyra's arms, her tiny breaths warm against the cloth, her small fingers clutching at her mother's robe. Lyra's eyes never left her daughter's face, as if looking away for even a second might cause her to vanish again. The human stood nearby, his hands empty now, the blue light faint in his palm. He watched her with quiet eyes, eyes that carried weight, eyes that carried secrets. Lyra's voice was low, sharp, trembling with both rage and need. "Tell me why," she demanded. "Tell me what they want with our children." The man shifted, his jaw tight, his face pale in the glow. "It is not simple," he said, his voice rough. "But you must know if you keep her, if you keep singing. The danger will not end." Her arms tightened around the child, her eyes burning. "Danger has already taken everything," she snapped. "I will not lose her again, speak. Tell me the truth." He closed his eyes for a moment as if fighting himself. Then he spoke, slow, heavy, every word a stone. "The soldiers take your children for experiments. They call it science, they call it progress, but it is cruelty. They test your young ones to see how they survive, how they resist, how they can be used," Lyra gasped. Her body shaking, her song broke into silence. Her heart screamed, but no sound came. She could only stare at him. He looked at her with sorrow. "They believe your kind has something humans do not. Something in your blood, something in your hearts. They want to use it, to turn it into a weapon. Your children are not children to them, they are tools." Her rage erupted, her voice rising like fire. "Monsters," she hissed. "Monsters who call themselves men." The baby stirred at her voice, a soft whimper escaping, and Lyra quickly softened her tone, rocking her gently, whispering the lullaby again, her song trembling with both love and fury. The man lowered his head. "I could not stand it," he said. "I saw them break families, I saw them take children. I saw the pain. And I knew I could not be part of it. I had to stop, even if it was only one life. Even if it was only her." Lyra's eyes narrowed, suspicion biting at her heart. "Why her?" she asked. "Why my daughter? There were others. Why did you save only her?" He looked at the cradle, the carvings of stars glowing in the light, his voice soft. "Because she never stopped crying for you, night after night, even when the others went silent. She cried and cried, calling for her mother. The soldiers grew angry. They wanted to silence her forever. I could not let them. I could not let that sound die." Her body shook. Tears filled her eyes. She pressed her lips to her daughter's hair, her song breaking into sobs. The man's words cut through her anger, yet questions still burned. "You risked everything for this," she whispered. "But why tell me now? Why come here? Why not hide? Why not run?" His gaze was steady, his voice calm. "Because they will come. They will notice she is gone. They will search. They will burn this place to the ground if they must. You must be ready." Her heart twisted, fear crawling into her chest. She thought of her people, of the silent homes, of the children already lost, and now of soldiers returning with fire. Her song grew sharper, darker, more desperate. The man stepped closer, his voice urgent. "You cannot fight them alone, but there are others like me. Humans who do not believe in this cruelty, who resist in secret. We hide, we plan, we protect who we can. But it is never enough." Lyra's eyes widened, the idea like a spark in the darkness. "Others," she whispered. "There are more like you," he nodded. "Yes, but we are hunted. If they find us, we die. Still we fight, still we save, because your people deserve more than silence. Your children deserve more than cages." The cradle rocked gently as if listening, the carvings of stars catching the glow of the light. Lyra's mind swirled, rage, hope, confusion, sorrow, all colliding. Could she trust him? Could she trust any human? And yet here he was, standing before her, bringing back her child when all others had been taken. Her voice softened, her song a whisper. "If I believe you, if I trust you, what then? What happens to us?" He looked at her with a weight that pressed like stone. "Then we run," he said. "We hide before they come. We find the others, we keep her safe. We keep singing until the silence breaks." Lyra held her daughter close, her heart torn, her eyes fixed on him outside. The night was still but not empty. Shadows moved in the distance, faint echoes carried on the wind. The world was shifting. The danger was coming inside the small room. Truth had broken the silence, it had cut open wounds. It had lit a fire that could not be put out. Lyra's voice rose once more, the lullaby trembling with new meaning. It was no longer only sorrow, it was defiance. It was the voice of a mother who knew the truth. The human stood in silence, watching, listening. And though the night was heavy, though the danger was close, something had changed. The cradle was no longer empty. The silence was no longer whole. The truth had been spoken, and nothing would ever be the same again. The truth burned in Lyra's mind. Her daughter pressed close against her chest, the human's words echoing in her ears. Experiments, cages, soldiers who would soon return. She wanted to shut it out. She wanted to believe the night was safe. But deep inside she knew the danger was already moving toward them. The man stood firm, the blue light dimming in his palm. His voice steady. They will come, they always come. You cannot stay here. Lyra's eyes blazed. This is my home, she said, her voice shaking but fierce. My cradle, my people, my child belongs here. Not in the hands of strangers, not in the shadows of humans. He stepped closer. His eyes urgent. If you stay, they will find her again. They will take her. They will take you too. Do you want her to grow up in a cage? Do you want her song to die in silence? Her heart screamed. Her arms tightened around the baby. Her lullaby broke into sobs. Every word he spoke was fire and ice, truth and pain. The cradle rocked gently beside them, the carved stars gleaming under the weak light. It seemed to ask her the same question. Would she cling to the past, or step into the unknown? She thought of her people, the mothers who no longer sang, the fathers who walked with empty eyes, the children who had been stolen and never returned. If she left, she would abandon them. If she stayed, she might lose her daughter forever. The silence outside the walls grew heavier. The night carried faint echoes, distant steps, the hum of machines moving through the dark. They were closer than she wanted to believe. Her voice cracked. Why should I trust you? She asked, her eyes sharp. You are human. Your kind took her. Your kind brought us silence. He did not flinch. His voice low but steady. Because I am not like them. Because I chose to defy them. Because I risked everything for her. And because if you do not trust me now, you will have nothing left to protect. The baby stirred. A small cry breaking the air. Lyra pressed her lips to the soft skin. Her tears falling, her lullaby rose again, fragile and trembling. She looked at the door, at the night outside. She imagined soldiers marching through the village, torches of blue fire burning, children screaming, mothers begging. The silence returning even heavier than before. The man's voice cut through her fear. I know a way out, a path through the forest. They will not find us there, but we must go before dawn if we wait. It will be too late. Her body shook, her breath sharp. The choice before her was a blade. Stay and risk death, leave and risk betrayal. She was torn in half, her heart burning with rage and fear. The cradle seemed to echo her song, the wood creaking softly as if urging her, the carved rivers catching the dim light, her people's symbols glowing like tiny stars. She turned to the man, her eyes full of fire. If I go with you, if I leave my people, what happens when the soldiers return here? What happens to those who cannot run? His face fell, his shoulders heavy. I cannot save them all, he whispered. But I can save her, I can save you, and sometimes saving one life is the beginning of saving many. Her chest ached. Her voice broke. And if you lie, she said, if this is a trap, if this is another way to steal from me, then I will kill you with my own hands. He nodded, his eyes steady. Then kill me if I fail, but trust me long enough to keep her safe. The baby's hand reached out, tiny fingers brushing against Lyra's chin, and her heart shattered. She knew she could not let her child fall back into the hands of monsters. She could not bear another empty cradle. She lifted her head, her lullaby steady now. No longer only sorrow but strength. She looked at the man and gave her answer. We go. His shoulders eased, but his eyes stayed sharp. Then be ready, the forest path is long, the night is short, and danger walks close. Lyra gathered cloth around her daughter. Pressing her close, she kissed the child's forehead, whispering promises, her song soft in her throat. She turned to the cradle one last time, her hand brushing its carved edges, her tears falling onto the wood. The cradle rocked gently, empty once more. But this time it was not sorrow that filled it. It was a promise. A vow that one day it would hold her daughter again in safety. She stepped away, her heart heavy but firm, her voice whispering, wait for us, as if the cradle itself could hear. The man opened the door, the strange light spilling out into the night. Shadows stretched long across the ground. The forest loomed in the distance, dark and endless. Lyra clutched her child, her song rising, the lullaby carrying into the cold air, defiant, unbroken. Behind her, the village slept in silence before her. The forest waited, and between the two stood the dangerous choice she had made. The night would not be kind. The soldiers would not be slow, but her steps were steady, her arms strong, her heart alive. For she had chosen to risk everything, to leave behind the silence, to follow the enemy who had brought her hope. And as the door closed behind them, the cradle stood alone, rocking softly. Holding only echoes of her song, the forest swallowed them, tall trees rising like walls of shadow, the ground soft with roots and leaves, the air thick and cold. Lyra clutched her daughter close, her voice humming the lullaby, soft but steady, each note guiding her steps. The human moved ahead, his blue light dimmed to a faint glow, just enough to mark the path, his eyes sharp, his body tense. Every sound in the forest made him turn his head, every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves. Behind them, the village slept, unaware of the danger that crept closer, unaware that soldiers were already marching through the night. Drawn by the silence broken by song, Lyra's heart pounded. Her arms ached from holding her child, but she did not stop. Her voice kept rising, her lullaby now more than comfort. It was a shield. It was defiance. It was the thread that held her together. The human spoke without turning, his voice low. They will come faster than we think. The machines move quicker than feet. We must reach the caves before dawn once we are inside. They cannot track us. She narrowed her eyes, suspicion still burning. And if you are leading me into a trap, she whispered, if this forest ends in chains, then you will not live to see dawn. He did not answer with anger. He only nodded, his voice steady. Then kill me if you must, but keep walking. For her, the baby stirred. A soft cry escaping, Lyra rocked her gently, whispering the lullaby again, her tears falling onto the child's hair. The forest stretched endless, shadows shifting, the air filled with strange calls of night creatures. Sometimes she thought she saw lights between the trees, pale and cold like the glow of soldiers' machines. Her heart jumped each time, but the man kept moving, always forward, never slowing. As the hours passed, her mind spun with questions. Who was this man? Why had he risked his life? What did he truly want? His face carried sorrow. His steps carried purpose, but her heart refused to trust. Trust had been broken the night her daughter was taken. Still, each time her daughter breathed softly in her arms, each time she looked and saw the child alive, she knew she had no choice but to walk beside him. The path grew narrow, roots twisting, branches clawing at their clothes. The man lifted the light higher, and in the distance a faint shimmer appeared. A break in the darkness, the caves, he whispered. We are close, hope sparked, but fear pressed harder. Lyra's voice cracked as she asked, and then what? We hide in shadows forever? We live like ghosts. His gaze turned to her, sharp, unwavering. No, he said. We wait, we gather, we fight when the time is right. Your song will not be the only song. Others will rise. Silence will break. Her heart twisted. Could it be true? Could there really be more? Or was this only another promise that would turn to dust? Before she could answer, a sound ripped through the night. A deep hum, sharp and growing. The ground trembled, the trees shook. Lyra froze. Her breath sharp, she knew that sound. The soldiers' machines. The man's face darkened. They are here, he hissed. Run! They broke into a sprint. The forest alive with thunder. Blue lights cutting through the trees behind them. Shadows of soldiers moving like wolves through the dark. Lyra clutched her child tighter, her song rising louder, wild, desperate. A cry against the roar of machines. The lullaby that once soothed now became a battle hymn. Branches tore at her arms. Roots caught at her feet, but she did not stop. Her voice carried them forward, her song guiding her through the dark. The man led the way, his movement swift. His voice calling, this way, faster. The caves loomed ahead. Dark mouths in the stone, shadows deep and endless. But the soldiers were closer. Their lights brighter, their steps heavier. The air filled with their shouts, their commands. Lyra's heart screamed. Her mind raced. What if this was betrayal? What if he was leading her straight into their hands? What if the caves held only chains? She slowed for a moment, her eyes blazing, her voice sharp. If this is a trap, if you betray me, I swear I will. He turned, his eyes fierce. Then do it now, he shouted, but if you want her to live. Keep running, the baby cried, her tiny voice piercing the night, and Lyra knew she had no choice. She ran, her lullaby rising louder than the cries, louder than the machines, louder than her fear. They reached the caves, stone walls towering, shadows stretching deep. The man pulled her inside, the light in his hand fading to darkness. The soldiers' glow flickered at the edge of the trees, their voices echoing, their machines humming. But the caves swallowed Lyra and her child. Hiding them in silence, her breath came ragged, her song trembling, her heart pounding. She looked at the man, her eyes still sharp with suspicion. He met her gaze, his voice low. This is only the beginning. The baby's cries softened. Her small hand reaching for her mother's face, Lyra kissed her gently, tears falling, her lullaby soft once more, echoing in the dark. Hope burned faint in her chest, but fear still lingered. The question still haunted her. Had she escaped into safety? Or had she walked into betrayal? The cave walls gave no answer. The night gave no answer. Only her song carried through the silence. Fragile, unbroken, and the story of a mother, a child, and the human who carried them into the unknown, continued into the shadows,